Hi, sixth grade. I'm loving your element superheroes that you put in the Flipgrid group. They're great. If any of you haven't visited the Flipgrid group, you should definitely go and check it out. I want to ask you a question about the periodic table of the elements. Can you find water there? Let's look around. Is water one of the elements? I don't see it there. Do you know why that is? It's because water is not an element. It's made of elements, but you have to combine a couple of elements together to make water. The chemical formula for water is H2O. H2O. You guys know what H stands for, right? That's right. Number 1, hydrogen. Hydrogen. And you know what O stands for, right? A lot of you used O for your superhero because you know people need it to survive. O is for oxygen. 2 means that we need 2 hydrogens. It means we need 2 hydrogens, not 2 oxygens. And here's how you can remember it. If you were to draw the oxygen, you could imagine it being sort of a blob. Sometimes people draw atoms as being a blob with a sort of a bunch of electrons flying around it. We're just going to draw it as a blob for now. And if you were to add the hydrogen atoms, they'd be a lot smaller and they'd be kind of stuck, not to the sides, but kind of at an angle like that. It kind of looks like a little animal, like a little bear or a little Mickey Mouse. Hydrogen is small. It's number 1 on the periodic table. It's the smallest one there is. And you need 2. Those are like the 2 little ears. And the oxygen is the bigger one. I find this helps me remember that reminds me that there are 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. So because we're putting a couple of atoms together, we call that a molecule. This is a molecule. Molecule is something that is made from a bunch of atoms. Today, you're going to be building molecules. Well, we're going to model that. We're not going to use actual molecules. Too small. The fun thing about building molecules is that these are like the building blocks. The atoms are like the building blocks. You can put them together and make anything you want. So any substance in the world is either made of atoms or atoms combined in some way to make molecules. All right. So sometimes when you see a drawing of an atom, it just, it looks like, sometimes they look like this. Sometimes people will draw the center part of the atom. Sometimes they'll draw all the protons and neutrons. And then sometimes they draw circles because electrons go traveling around. Or sometimes it looks like this, kind of in their looping orbits. Today, we're going to use a very, very, very simple model for each atom. We're just going to use a little square of paper. So you're going to make some atoms by cutting a piece of paper. So first you need a strip of paper, and you're just going to cut a little bit of paper like that. Okay, we're going to make our hydrogen atoms first. I want you to make 4 hydrogen atoms. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are our atoms. Let's label them. H, H, H is for hydrogen. Okay. Now, if you want, you can color code them. Give them a little bit of color. I'm going to move my periodic table out of the way. You can give them a little bit of color for color coding to make it less likely to get them confused with something else. That's optional. Okay. Next, we're going to make 4 oxygen atoms. So let's strip the paper. If you want to make it more realistic, you can make them bigger, but you don't have to. 1, 2, 3, 4. So convenient that the symbol for oxygen is the first letter of the word in English, unlike some that are like Latin or some other languages. Okay, let's color code them. I'm going to give my oxygen a little bit of red coloring just to make sure I don't get them mixed up. A little bit of color coding. Okay, so we have 4 oxygen atoms. Now I want you to make 4 carbon atoms. If you look on the periodic table, you'll see that carbon is a little bit smaller than oxygen. You don't have to make the sizes any particular size. Whatever size is fine. And we're going to label them with the symbol for carbon, which is just the letter C. Oops, let's make that so it's actually something you can read. And what color didn't I use yet? Green. A little bit of green for our carbon. Okay, so actual atoms look nothing like this. They're tiny. They have all kinds of little particles like they're electrons flying around. But we want to keep it simple today. So the important thing to remember is that atoms are like building blocks, and you can put them together and make other things. So if you wanted to make a model of a water molecule, you would need 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen. In this case, we actually know the shape, kind of like a Mickey Mouse ears. So that's how you make a molecule. So what I'm going to do is ask you in the next slide to make a couple of very specific molecules. I'm going to ask you to make a couple of different molecules using these atom pieces. And then I'm going to ask you how many of each kind of atom you used. And then I'm going to give you a chance to be creative and invent your own. So go to the next slide for the directions when you're ready.